Hi, my name is Scott Marker, and this is another episode of Treasure Valley NIA Quick Tips. What it is I'm a franchise owner of a network and action franchise. We're out of Houston, Texas. Now we're all over the United States, and I just found out today we're in our eighth country now, and it's just people like me that wanted to work for ourselves and bought a franchise. And that I meet, it's a local franchise here, networking group. So I meet a lot of high caliber business owners, and I like to share their knowledge with our listeners. So today's a perfect example. Fred, introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Scott. I appreciate it. My name is Fred Webster. I'm a career ownership coach with the Entrepreneur Source, which is also a franchise. And for
Oh,
40 years, we've been helping people own their career instead of being owned by it in many different ways.
yeah. As I was talking about before we started recording, this is very timely just because it seems like a lot of people I know are looking for what they want to do in the next stage of their life. Some are
Mhm.
here in the country, which I just talked to you about. I got a friend over in India, and then yeah, so they don't know what they want to do. So that's why having you on today is perfect because it feeds right into a lot of conversations I've been lately. So first of all, how did you get involved in your franchise, the Entrepreneur's Source? How did you
So,
find that?
yeah, interesting. So, about let's see, I think it was in 2023. I was really kind of feeling stuck in my career. I was in healthcare for about 25 years.
Wow.
I'd been in pharmaceutical sales for one of the big pharmaceutical companies. I enjoyed that for a while, but I got stuck there, and then I actually got plucked out of pharma from an old pharma boss of mine, and went to work in the hospital space in a de novo role. They had not had a physician relations person at the hospital here in rural part of Idaho, and he asked me to start it up and kind of make it my own, which was really exciting. That was fun and very entrepreneurial. But after COVID, I climbed the ladder. I had a team of like 6 people in three different states. Um, but after COVID, things just really changed, and I wasn't able to deliver on the promise to my physicians. Really, it came around to staffing, and that was what they were clamoring for, and we were just stuck. And so, because I couldn't deliver, and delivering was my sense of meaning, I felt awful and had to get out of uh, what I was doing. The long story less long um, was that a person from the entrepreneur source called me and said, "Would you be open to speaking about business ownership as a possibility?" And I went through about 7 different franchises, both through the entrepreneur source and through a broker who had called me. And we'll get into the distinction between what we do and what brokers do, hopefully. And as it turns out, the last one I looked at was the entrepreneur source. We kind of came full circle. I didn't even consider it, and it ended up being the perfect fit. Um, I get to work remotely. I get to talk to really interesting people every day and help them, if they want, become entrepreneurs themselves. But more importantly, I help dozens of people every month find clarity and intentionality in their career. Again, that ownership mindset rather than just kind of being on the hamster wheel. I get to help people do what they are, be them, do what they want, but on purpose, not because they fell into it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's a great story because, like I said, we're I'm a franchise owner, and so how came to be is I had one company I worked for. The owner asked me if I was interested in ownership, and I said, man, I don't at the time of my life, I don't own a company. How about an ESOP or something? I'll be a part owner, but still be a leadership here. And then he sold the company, and that was his right and stuff. But and then I found myself looking for another job.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then I go to work for another company, and the owner's talking about making me a partner, and another person too. And so after several years, the one guy left before me just said, Scott, never gonna make you a partner. And sure enough, so I was frustrated on the um, I guess looking for a job again. You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
just like
Hmm.
the hamster wheel is
Yeah.
exactly on. And so I thought, okay, I can own my own thing, but um, I don't really, sales is my thing, but running a business, I mean, I don't know. And that's why I lean towards a franchise. It's
Yeah.
let's, I'm good at, I'm really good at following directions and, proven models
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So anyway, that's how I found the Network and Action franchise. And it
Yeah.
was like you
Yeah.
too, is I looked at like several franchises, and the last one I looked at, I went, this is what I do anyway. But
Yeah.
and I love it because this will feed into what you do is I recently on somebody on LinkedIn, uh, they were to ask them if they were looking for a job, and they said, yeah, kind of, and I said, oh, I said, well, I'm glad I have this franchise because a lot of my friends I know have been laid off, and I'm the only employee, and my wife and I know the owner really well,
Yeah.
and she won't let me fire him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, yeah. So that kind of
Yeah. No, I get it.
feeds into all of it. That what you do feeds right into what I did. Um,
Yeah.
so what's the difference between what you do, a career ownership coach versus a career counselor?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. So I think the difference really comes down to what's a coach and what's a counselor, right?
Okay.
So a counselor or a consultant, they are they are really to dispense advice, right? You come to them with your problem, and they help you try to solve it, with their wisdom and experience, and et cetera. And there's a role for that. That's not what I do. Mine is more to tease out the answers that you already have and let you discover them for yourself and pull that out of you. So kind of like a coach on the football field is, giving you training, giving you tools to be able to do your job better, but really it's about your inner talent being able to be maximized, right? A counselor might say, "Hey, you should go do this," or "Hey, you should go do that," or "You should consider this." And I don't really do that. I start with people's goals, where they're trying to get, and then let's see if we can reverse engineer how to get there.
Okay.
But really, just by asking a lot of questions that they maybe haven't considered yet, because they didn't know that the those questions were important, to getting where they wanted to go. So it's very fine line, but I don't tell you what to do. I don't. I maybe suggest questions you can ask, as opposed to directions you should take, if that makes sense. Um, and help you. If someone has a problem, say, okay, well, how would you approach that? What knowledge do you need to get the answer to your question? How would you ask a question to gain that knowledge? So it's really kind of a Socratic method to pulling out from the client, what their needs are, and helping them translate that into action.
Yeah, I think um, kind of what I see what you do is versus just a counselor is that also is that you're not really saying, oh, here's 10 W-2 types. You say you like this? Well, here's 10.
Right.
Check our website and look for these, these type of and what you do is you're like going trying to like where do you want to go in life? Is that a W-2 job? Okay, let's check out that out
Yeah.
or ownership. And I've never had a career counselor or anybody ever talk about ownership. It's always
Yeah.
about how to get your next W-2 job.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
you know, I you know, I'm glad that I figured it out myself, but I might not have figured it out
Hmm.
myself. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
thought
Yeah.
W-2 was the only way to go. I was completely frustrated with working for other people and being
Yeah.
told something and thinking, I can be my own boss. I love being
Right.
my own boss. And is it easy? No, but I love getting up and doing what I love to do. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Career business ownership is been a life changer for me. I think my coach who hooked me up, I always say he saved my life. And that might be a little hyperbolic,
right?
but not too much.
Yeah, I know. It's great, just loving what you're doing and trying to help other people out. So, if you're gonna, oh, and then one other quick question too is
Yeah.
now you do a counselor, and then what about a broker? You have a
Yeah.
franchise broker, you have a business broker. So what's the
Right.
difference between those?
Yeah. So business brokers and franchise brokers are pretty, they can be different with some overlap, but I would say a business broker is looking primarily at the buying and selling of businesses that exist already.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're in real estate. There's a lot of overlap between corporate real estate and business brokers. And they may work on retainer, and they may work on behalf of the seller, or they may work on behalf on the buyer. So depending on who contacts them
Okay.
first. So some might help seek out an acquisition, and some may be representing the acquisition. Franchise brokers are typically uh they're independent. They have affiliations or agreements with lots of different franchises, and they pay them a referral fee if and when they find someone to buy into their franchise. And but they're really, most of the time, I would say the distinction is both of those, we're looking at the 5% of Americans who are ready, willing, and able to buy a business.
Yeah.
They know, they're like you. You're like, I want to go into business ownership. How do I do that? And you happen to go out on your own, but you might pursue a business broker or a franchise broker to help you do that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the 75% of Americans who say they want to be their own boss, but aren't sure how to go about doing it at all.
Wow.
And again, they're just saying it. They have the idea of it. It might even be repressed. And I'm working with them to kind of tease out that inner entrepreneur that they didn't know was there, and expose them to the possibility of business ownership and different ways you can do it, and then connecting them to the people to learn about them in a very, we'll call it a safe space. It's a
Yeah.
non-pressure based space. It's literally about discovery and seeing what you can learn. It doesn't matter to me if the client gets into a business ownership or not. I have recruiters they can work with and help them find a job if they decide that, hey, yes, you know what, W-2s for
Right.
me, that's where I want to go. Help me do that, Fred. Yes, I have people. But if they do say they want to own a business, how do they do it? Well, maybe they want to be a consultant. There's people who want to do that. Great. Here's some people that can help you get some startup capital. Here's some other consultant coaches that help do that. I just connect them. And yes, franchising is part of that calculus, but it's not exclusive. And that's what makes the entrepreneur source different than a pure brokerage, which is really focused. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It's just a different way of doing things.
Yeah. I think what you do is a lot more holistic,
Mm-hmm.
pieces and parts of a lot of things versus just one.
Correct.
Yeah. Which I think is great. Like I said, I probably would have I would have probably been much more comfortable years ago, um, when I was starting this journey, because I did there was a lot of lack of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Except I'm actually pretty good at what I do, you know,
Yeah.
but when you've been working for somebody else for your whole life, it's spooky going out on your own.
Yeah. It is.
And the broker was great, but he just kind of gave me a bunch of different businesses that kind
Yeah.
of like my background.
Yeah.
Um, so um, again, if you're gonna um, if I'm gonna go out and buy, like I'm gonna go out and get a business, why don't
Yeah.
I just look on a broker site for a bunch of businesses for sale,
Yeah.
or I mean, why? And again, and that you've already kind of answered this, but still, just
Yeah.
to kind of really clarify, is why would someone use you versus just trying
Mm-hmm.
to do it themselves?
Yeah. Great question. I think the answer is primarily in that people don't know what they don't know,
Okay.
and they are more likely to get into something that's obviously a fit for them, using your going either at it themselves and missing a whole bunch of other opportunities that might actually be better for them. 95% of the time when I place someone in a business, it's in something they had no prior experience,
Hmm.
had previously dismissed, or didn't even want to look at. And I'll put it back to you. Why do you think that might be?
Because you don't, you
Assuming
like
that's true.
saying what you said. You don't know what you don't know. You
Mm-hmm.
don't I mean, you're just going, well, maybe I should own a HVAC company. Oh, but I don't know anything about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So what, I mean, what I have no track record of talk. Someone like you might say, oh, that's weird you say that, because I met somebody with your skill sets
Mhm.
that over in Oregon that I just
Mhm.
had them open a franchise of HVAC, and
Right.
here's
Right.
why they were a fit. So just a lot more. Again, it's direction. When you're not, it's just um, going in ownership is scary enough without and just trying
Mhm.
to roll the dice and see if you pick the right one. You got to really. It's nice having someone like you because you got to be really confident. Really confident in what you're doing and stuff like that. And then once you do it, pull the trigger. But I
Right.
just don't. You don't do it lightly. You don't just go, well, I'm going to go buy one of these businesses
Right.
until you kind of really diagnose
Yeah.
why that business versus 10 other businesses.
Right.
Really what it is. Make sure you really dial into what is your passion, what drives
Yeah.
you, what's gonna and then type business going to make you money. Are the hours the
Right.
type hours you want? I mean, there's just
Right.
so many
Right.
different things to get in a business
Right.
than just going because like I'll give you a good example. There was a franchise, um, uh, the sign franchise,
Uh-huh.
and I thought there's a lot of things there that I'd want and stuff like that, but it,
Right.
it took me forever to drag it out of them. But the once I figured out what the costs were
Uh-huh.
to the day one amount of money I needed to come out with, I didn't have that type of money. It was
Right.
astronomically expensive. So
Right.
I spent a lot of time with somebody that I wasn't a financial fit. I'm not
Right.
going to go into that. There was too
Right.
much of debt. I would have had to go too much of
Right.
debt, and I was
Right.
so they never asked those questions. Oh, this you'd be perfect. You'd be perfect. Well, once I figured out how much debt I was going to have to go into, I'm like, no, I'm not. That's not a perfect fit.
Right. Right. Well, and let me rewind on that, Scott. So
Yeah,
again, why do you need a coach? So you made a lot of assumptions there that may or may not have been true, but they were based in a huge part of it, which is the unknown. And am I gonna be able to reach my financial goals with this? You may have approached it in a way that I would have maybe helped you with the decision matrix a little bit. Number one, you didn't want to go into debt. You were looking at the costs, maybe not as an investment, but just as cost. I try to get my clients to look at things a little bit differently and start at the goals piece. I don't have them look at the investment amount up front. I mean, I tell them about it. I'm not hiding the
right,
ball, but
right.
we don't focus on it because if we can't get to the goal, which is the financial piece, the lifestyle piece, and then the day to day that doesn't suck, um,
Yeah,
if you can't get that three-legged stool to stand, the investment is meaningless.
yeah,
If you had, for example, let's take your sign company. Let's say you discovered it is virtually impossible for me to fail. All other things being equal, I can do this. I'm going to make plenty of money. I'm going to enjoy doing it. And I have the time I went back. It's outstanding. Then you said, but wait, it costs, we'll just use a number, $300,000 first year with working capital, franchise
right.
investment, build out, etc. I don't know if I want to do that. But wait a minute, it's getting me to my goals. So now you're in a how do I do that instead of I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
That's number one. Number two is how do you get access to that capital? Well, you probably thought of, well, I can get a HELOC if I own my own home, or I've got some cash in the bank, but I'm not touching my retirement savings and I don't know how to get a loan. Or SBA loan. I don't have a business plan. I don't know. I don't know all these things. So I just can't do it. As a coach, I have resources to introduce you to get educated on those things. There's ways to access your retirement savings, for example, without taking it out of your retirement. Your
uh-huh.
business stays in your retirement. A lot of people don't know that. I have people who can help. Startup loans that are not based on securitizing against your assets. They do have a cost associated with them, but they allow people to basically you're risking your credit,
Yeah,
but you can access those things. I have those people. I have SBA people that you can talk to. We've got people in NIA that you can talk to. But if you don't know what you don't know,
yeah, yeah,
then you don't even know to get introduced to those folks. And it sounds like NIA is the perfect fit for you and you found it. Congratulations.
yeah.
But we talked about the previously dismissed piece in the 95%, and because they don't know the vision of what's possible and they don't approach it as a possibility, they approach it as a matchmaker.
Yeah,
And
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 go ahead.
exploring and seeing things that come up and just discovering what's possible and going in with a possibilities mindset as opposed to a decision making mindset is a different approach. And that's what we do rather than matchmaking, which is, in my opinion, every time I try to matchmake someone, it's a fail
No. Yeah.
because it's not about the learning. It's about, well, this is the perfect fit. Well, then it's not. And then who am I? I'm an idiot.
Yeah. 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 See, and with me in the sign company, my challenge was I, what was the deal breaker was I called other franchises here
Uh huh.
outside, and they were telling me a completely different story than what
Mm,
and
mm.
that's where the things
Yeah.
didn't match.
That's the breakdown. Yeah.
If it would have been one of those things where,
Yeah.
the numbers would have worked out, then it would have. But the two stories were completely opposite. So
Yeah.
didn't give
Yeah.
me
That's
didn't give me
validation.
didn't give me confidence that I wanted to invest that type of money when local people, one of the local
Yeah.
businesses actually asked me if I thought I was calling to buy their business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Validation's huge.
yeah. Um, if if you're not if you're not sure, um, if you want to start a business or work for
Mhm.
yourself, right? Um, again, we there's all these different things that I before I met you that I know of,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
like, so why wouldn't I just go to a recruiter?
Yeah. Well, you can go to a recruiter.
And the recruiters, though, again,
Why
like
haven't you?
that
Why
that
haven't
same,
you?
yeah,
You know,
that,
I mean that
yeah,
would be the question I would ask.
okay,
The other thing is a lot of times recruiters find you and they're working for the businesses. And so good luck. Like you have to come across their transom and then they reach out to you. And that's nice. And I actually have there's a franchise that does a lot of placements in that space and they work in verticals that they work within. So you know, they exist. Why work with me? Well, first of all, what are you trying to accomplish? Recruiter doesn't care. You want to get a job.
right,
But why? That seems like an obvious question. Well, I need to make money. Why? Well, so I can feed my family. Why? Well, so they don't die. Okay, but why? And that seems weird. What are you living for?
yeah,
What are you trying to do? Where are you trying to go? Do you want to travel someday? Do you want to own a home? Do you just want to be content? Do you want to be able to sit and not worry about money on a day to day, like paycheck to paycheck? If all you're doing is getting a job to maximize your income versus the level of stress that you're putting out, you're going to rinse and repeat that a lot. If you want it to end with this job or this business, let's figure out what makes you tick. Let's figure out what your motivations are. Let's figure out where you want to go. And then again, as I said, reverse engineer the best way to do that. And through a goals based approach, you will be more successful in finding satisfaction than simply basing it on a stress to income ratio. So that's why you work with me. And then we can get you to a recruiter if that's what you end up wanting to do. But now you're doing it on purpose
yeah,
instead of on accident. And that's really what it's about. That's the ownership piece. That's the career ownership. Own your career. Don't be owned by it.
yeah. I see. I love that. Like you said, then on purpose, you're going out to that recruiter because you just go, I have no. Once I thought about it, I have no entrepreneurs kind of tick. I don't really want to own a business. Um, I really do want to work for a W-2. That's just the way I'm ticking and stuff.
Yeah.
Versus somebody like me that, I just got to the point in my life that I went, um, I want to control my own destiny.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm tired of working. I've worked for several other businesses,
Right. Right.
and I just want to control my own destiny.
Yeah.
And it's fun because even my family, gets excited. We'll have like a customer that's been with me for years, and they renew. And I tell my customer, "Hey, one of my customers now renewed for their sixth year," and everyone's
Yeah.
like, "Yay!" Everyone's happy
Yeah.
in the family and stuff. So it's more it's fulfilling.
Sure.
It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
And going back to what I think, really, what, talking to you before and then during this, I really think you just have, you're just holistic. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but then
Yeah.
again, other
That
ones are
works.
so narrowly focused. You know what I mean? In the past, that if you're going to go to a recruiter, they're looking for a job for you, and they're not probably going to. And plus, they're paid on getting you a job, so they're probably not going to necessarily say, "Hey, you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe you should think. Have you ever thought of entrepreneurship?" you know?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
what does that look like, you know?
Right.
So I think,
Exactly.
yeah, I think that's really what you do. And again, I'm excited because again, I've myself, I'm a lot of what you're looking for to help. That's what I was.
Sure.
You know what I
Sure.
mean? Just
Exactly. Yeah.
tired of W2 jobs. I didn't know I
It's what
wanted.
I was. I mean, as I said, he saved my life,
Yeah.
and changed my whole approach to I mean, I was a sales guy, right? And I ask all my clients, I mean, do you feel like if you feel like I'm selling you on something, I need you to let me know because that's not why we're here. And I have not had one client say that they felt like I've been selling them something because, as I said, it doesn't matter to me where they end up as long as they get that clarity. And so, yeah, it's
I'm gonna
a totally different approach.
give you guys some kudos because at one of our meetings, you mentioned the entrepreneur source
Hmm.
and another guy that had moved here um,
Hmm.
uh, um, said, "Wow, that's you guys one of your teammates, you guys that know each other, you know,
Yeah,
I mean, one of your
yeah,
teammates, I used your services and it was wonderful." And he went
yeah,
on and on what a wonderful
yeah,
experience was. Found him a franchise which he loves now,
yeah, yeah,
and he was so excited. And he went on and on and on how what a great experience they had working
yeah,
with you guys' system, the way you guys do stuff, and the
yeah.
support you give, and even afterwards the support he was got get.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
I thought that was kind of great
Yeah,
because it shows what a small world it is.
it,
Because the
it
fact that
does.
he had moved here, bought a franchise, didn't know anybody, and that you're
Yep,
there visiting,
yep, 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 yep.
and that it's the same franchise. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always say here in the Treasure Valley, people always laugh at me, but it's true. I'm a fourth generation Idahoan. We're still like a big high school.
yep,
It's like one person knows it. It isn't seven. It's usually two or three.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, so now we're gonna get into uh, the how do you get paid? Because I mean, you do
yeah,
all this stuff for no charge. I mean,
right,
so you must somehow you must get paid because
yeah.
you know,
And it's a great question. And that it's correct. I do not charge my clients a single penny. In fact, there's not even a place on my website to take a payment. Some people
wow,
feel obligated. They feel badly that they know that revenue comes from referral fees, from my various referral partners, whether it's a franchise, whether there's a recruiter, whether there's a funding partner.
right,
There's some pay me fees, some don't. It's all actually negotiated through the franchise. This is actually what I like about one of the things I like about the entrepreneur source is they negotiate all that stuff for me. I don't have to deal with it,
okay,
and they do the invoicing to the people. I don't have to deal with it. And so when someone says, "Well, how much are you getting paid if I sign with this franchise?" I'll say, if I've never worked with that franchise before, I'll say, "I don't know. I know it's more than $1, but I honestly don't know because that is kind of exclusive knowledge to the franchise and to the entrepreneur source, um, and that's their arrangement. My arrangement's with you as the client to find clarity. So if it happens to be in a franchise, I mean, yeah, that may be revenue producing for me, but that doesn't really matter to me ultimately because I do what I do for a different reason,
right,
right? So they actually train us to do what's called detach from the outcome. And I struggled for a long time to figure out what that meant. And once I figured it out, it made me more successful. But detaching from the outcome is two things. One, in franchising in general, it's following the system. Follow the system because others have followed it and they have done well.
right.
Therefore, logic states that if you follow the system, you can do well. If you start trying to monkey around with it and change things, there's no guarantee or even likelihood that it'll go well. Go with try. Why would you pay for something and then not use it? Is basically that's the franchise motto. But for me, detaching from the outcome is following the process and trusting that it will work. And then literally focusing on the client's needs. That is the goal. That is why I do what I do. I want you to own your career, not be owned by it. I've said it a lot of times here. That is the outcome that I seek for you and that you should seek for yourself. If we do that, success happens. Let me use an analogy. Someone says, "Okay, still, but Fred, you got to get paid, so you got to have a motive in it."
Yeah.
Okay. A surgeon gets paid when they cut you open and put stuff in or take stuff out, right? That's when they make their money. But a good surgeon will tell you about 10% of my clients are surgical candidates. Maybe they're not healthy enough. Maybe the benefit is too small to risk cutting you open and having an invasive procedure,
Right.
risk of infection, risk of, something, anesthesia, whatever. So they're not going to do it because you're not a good surgical candidate. That doesn't mean they don't work you up and do lab tests and do MRIs and see you in the
Right.
clinic and talk it out. They do all those things and they're happy to do it because they like visiting with patients. They like solving problems. They like doing, practicing medicine, but they only get paid 10% of the time. Same thing with me. I'd say about 20% of my clients, and this should be a familiar number, 80-20 rule, right?
Yep.
20% of my clients are quote unquote revenue producing. The 80% are not. Doesn't mean I don't see the 80% because guess what? I don't know which one they're going to be when they come in the door.
Right.
We have to go through it. We have to see what's right for you. We have to see where you get clarity. Once we get clarity, that's the goal. And enough pans out that I do okay. But that shouldn't be your concern as the client.
Yeah.
Your concern should be getting clarity. So
Hey,
that's what I
and
do.
go back to the beginning. You have a tagline for you guys, your company. You said about finding your, what was that tagline again?
Well, it's a trademark career ownership coach.
Okay.
My tagline, and I don't know if it's unique, but I thought it was clever, says, let's own your career instead of being owned by it.
Yeah. I like that.
That's it.
Yeah, I like again, not everyone's ownership isn't for everybody, but again, if you get clarity on, hey, this isn't so bad. This is what this is, this isn't so bad. I tell people that
Yeah.
all the time. I got people that make really good livings and they're kind of burned out at working at a job or something, but they're making a lot of money. I'm talking for this area, a lot of
Yeah.
money. I'm saying
Yeah.
you have a cabin, you have boats,
Yeah.
you have a beautiful
Yeah.
home. I
Yeah.
said, I said, don't, and then someone's trying to get them to go do something else. I'm going, you've been doing this for 15 years
Yeah.
and just be careful because
Right.
and they don't work. I mean, they're like a machine. They just got things down and they don't, anyway. So sometimes people, um, so there'd be a case where I was kind of coach them and they weren't going for ownership. They were going for another
Yeah.
job that was promising them
Yeah.
all this money. And I
Yeah.
knew that
Yeah.
I knew that industry and that industry has 95% turnover. So I'm like,
Right.
don't go that way. And then that will
Right.
tie into going with you
Yeah.
again. Someone like me, you said your background is sales. My
Yeah.
background is sales. Right out of college, sales or sales leadership, and they have, depending what you look at it, but I've seen some in 3 times the turnover rate of any other B2B,
Mm-hmm.
three
Yep.
times the turnover rate. So that was where me or other people like me, if you're in sales, you should look for another because the skill sets needed to be successful in business and a lot of
Yeah.
times in sales are a lot of those are easily crossed over. So if you're a
Yeah.
salesperson listening to this and
Yeah.
you're tired of being, laid off and going for the next job, uh, more than ever you should talk to Fred because
Yeah.
um, again that's why I've written 2 books on sales and that's why I'm passionate about it is
Yeah.
because um, I have so many friends that not on their own, just it's the way life is that
Right.
they get laid off again from a
Right.
company and they're the top producer. It doesn't matter. The company got
Right.
bought out or whatever. So yeah. So
Well, and if I can follow on that, I have a great example. I have a really, really good friend, and she's in sales, and she's always been a top performer. But about every 2 years, she's looking for the new thing to do. And the reason is because a lot of times these comp plans, if you crush it in your first year, you get paid handsomely. Then they want you to recrush it.
yeah, yeah,
Well, even if you're the top performer, like there's going to be an S curve that you hit the top of.
yeah,
You're still going to be growing, but maybe not as much as you were initially. So you could be the top performer in the company, but because you didn't sandbag yourself early and grow slowly, you may be holding yourself back from a comp plan that doesn't
yeah,
allow you that doesn't reward you for being the top performer. It only rewards you for being a consistent grower. And or whatever. There's any comp plans. Name someone who says, "Oh, my comp plan's perfect."
yeah,
No, I do know one person who has a comp plan that's perfect. It's me, and it's you.
yeah, yeah,
Because guess what? I decide how much money I make because if I want to make more money, I just work harder and I sell one more thing.
yeah,
My comp plan is go work harder.
yeah,
And I talked to her and I told her that, and she was like, yes. So that's a great example. Is you can make as much money as you want in your business by being creative and getting new clients and all these things. When you own your own business, you decide your comp plan, and you decide when you can find contentment. Maybe you're just hardcore and you just want to keep killing and growing like that. Then it's unlimited. But there may come a point where, like, you know what, I hit my 500,000 a year and I can maintain that
Yep.
and be happy. You don't have some boss saying, well, you better keep selling,
Yep.
you better grow. Well, what if you're happy and you're performing and they're making money off you? Like, but when you're working for somebody else, it doesn't work like that.
Yep.
So that's where the ownership can be that trump card to contentment and happiness.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I thought I'd throw that in there for sure because, like I said,
Yeah.
my background is sales, and I
Yeah.
mean,
Absolutely.
anybody that's in sales and you're burned out, look for entrepreneurship because I'm
Yeah.
telling you
At
that
least look at it. At least look at it.
yeah, yeah,
Find out, rule it out. Rule it out based
yeah,
on facts, not on fear.
yeah, yeah, that you might not be able to afford it because, and we'll get into that real,
Yeah.
but I I looked at that one was super expensive, but it wasn't just that, the initial and stuff. It was the fact that I got contradictory and feedback on how much
Yeah.
I could make
The
from
validation.
people doing it here in the area
Yes.
saying
Yes.
that you're never going to make that much money.
Right.
And
Right.
so that was what, but there was, I think a lot of people don't go into ownership, any type of ownership, because they don't think they have the funds. And like you just
Right.
mentioned, there's numerous ways to afford to go into business
Yep.
and funding that business.
Yep.
I mean, there's
Yep.
just numerous ways to do it.
Yeah.
I said I got a my franchise. I got a great deal the way I looked at it. So
Hmm.
it was like I was like, wow, this is I mean, totally affordable.
Yep.
Um, so like what we'll end on this. It's like, so and you've kind of talked a little bit about, but what's the most like fulfilling part about your job? I mean, have you
Yeah.
had some success stories that you just like?
Yes. I was just kind of tabbling. I've only been doing this for about 2 years. And
Okay,
obviously there's a startup time, and it's a pretty long, because people don't just jump into business ownership. It can take
no,
months. One of the first people I talked with back in November, I think she was October of 2023. And she ended up signing her franchise agreement in about a year later. But she went through some trials and tribulations with work, and she had some employment, like, lawsuit going on. It was really complicated and ugly, but she was determined that she wanted to keep exploring business ownership when the time was right. And so we kind of took a pause, but I checked in with her from time to time. And finally, June of 24, I think it was, she said, Fred, let's go. Let's talk about business ownership. And we presented some stuff. And then her husband got involved. And he was kind of skeptical at first, and then he became like, no, 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 let's go. Um, and she ended up getting a swim school franchise that that's all about swim safety. That's their thing. It's not just
oh
about teaching you to swim, it's swim safety, water safety. And to go to that 95% thing of never having experience in it, he didn't know how to swim.
wow,
So talk about not having to be expert or even having experience. She had negative
yeah,
expertise in that space. And yet she was still able to do it. And she ended up getting another territory several months later, because she saw the opportunity as being so wonderful. And then I actually got to fly back to Chicago. I grew up in Chicago area, so I went to visit and met with her and her husband, and we had dinner with my wife, and she was just so grateful for the opportunity to be introduced to these companies and to gain the confidence after meeting with several. I think one of the things that I shared with her and she shared with me was, you go from getting on bended knee for someone to hire you because you finally found somebody who would pick up the phone off of LinkedIn
yeah,
and finally talk to you. And then you're like, please hire me, to going to, I've got several suitors here who are aching to work with me, to be my partner.
yeah,
And I got to choose. I get to do this business. I get to, I get to have the problems,
yeah,
right? Because I'm an owner, and it is a privilege to be an owner. And it is a privilege to go through those trials and tribulations. And because you own it. And that's the most satisfying thing. And frankly, same thing when you take ownership of your job. When you're doing it on purpose, with
Yeah.
purpose, everything becomes a get to instead of a
Yep.
have to. And that is a huge difference in life, in life outlook. When you get to say, I get to instead of I have to. If you can do that, if you can get to that point, if I can help you get there, nothing better.
I love that. I'm going to print off and put a sign on the wall because I listened to a local baseball college coach do a little talk, and that was one of his takeaways was in life is that don't I have to, I get to.
Mm-hmm.
His wife asked him to help with something, take out the trash, do the
Yeah.
whatever it was, and he said, something, I get to do that for my wife. I thought,
Yeah.
what a
Yeah.
great, and just like you talked about work and stuff, is that
Yeah.
it's not always it's not always easy. But the thing is, I get to do it for me and my family,
Yeah.
rather than have to. I get
Yeah.
to. I love that. So we'll end on that. So
That sounds
whatever you
great.
do in life, be purposeful and make sure you choose stuff because you get to do it, don't have to do it.
Absolutely.
So, hey, how would people get a hold? I'll have all the show notes, kind of
Yeah.
information in the show notes and stuff. But what's the best way to someone to reach out to you if they wanted to schedule a time to chat?
So best way to do that is just shoot me an email.
Okay,
Uh, F as in Fred Webster at esourcecoach.com. And my website is fwebster.esourcecoach.com. And there's a booking link there if you want to get on my calendar.
okay,
That's another way to do it. But there's all sorts of resources on there, blogs, podcasts, introduction to funding, all sorts of things.
okay.
And again, it doesn't matter where I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Yes, business ownership is a focus. I think people should look at it. I'm an evangelist for business ownership. But if that's not right for you, let's prove it.
Yeah, love
Let's
it,
not fear it. Let's prove it.
love it.
Then you can move forward.
Hey, it's been great having you on, Fred. Again, this is
Yeah.
perfect timing for me because it's like my life and people around me. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing it. And I'm sure the listeners will maybe get a few of them that reach out to you and see if they get to choose which way they go.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Hey, thanks, Fred. Have a good
Appreciate
one.
it. Yeah, we'll see you.